If you're having a hard time or you're trying to leave the organization, watch out for these 10 words or phrases Jehovah's Witnesses use to guilt and manipulate you back into submission. Number 10, the truth. Jehovah's Witnesses refer to themselves as the truth with a capital T. They believe, in case you missed it, that they are the one true religion and everyone else is wrong. I cannot overstate this. They literally believe that every other religion is false or counterfeit, all right? Wrong in every sense of the word. So they call themselves the truth to set themselves apart from the rest of the world, which, I mean, is just wildly narcissistic and hubristic on their part. But that's one of the hallmarks of a cult, right? We have the answers you need, and you can't find these answers anywhere else. And they use this phrase, the truth, as a moral shortcut to divide the world into good and bad. Oh, so you want to date this person? Are they in the truth? Oh, you made a friend at school. Are they in the truth? All right, if you are not in the truth, you are automatically, unequivocally, without a doubt, a bad person, a negative influence who just wants to draw the Jehovah's Witness away from their faith. I know it sounds stupid, but it is deeply, again, I cannot overstate this, it is deeply ingrained in Jehovah's Witnesses. It is so deeply ingrained, it's like blinking. And you have to understand, because it's so deeply ingrained, even the most skeptical, fed up, tired PMO, someone who's physically in but mentally out, someone who's considering leaving the organization, it'll screw with their head. Am I doing the right thing? I'm leaving the truth. Am I going to be, there's a little voice, like, am I going to be destroyed if I leave? Am I going to be struck with leprosy? They use this term, the truth, to F with your head, to make you question your own critical thinking abilities, as if you're about to leave the one safe space on earth. Put aside any esoteric, religious, philosophical discussion about truth and morality. You don't have to be a religious person to realize that it's not the truth, on the sheer basis that they're just liars who have repeatedly contradicted themselves, made false prophecies, and they've lied under oath repeatedly in court hearings. All right? It's not the truth. They're criminals. You're going to be fine. Number 9, worldly people. The term worldly is a slur Jehovah's Witnesses use to label people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses. Ooh, why do I use such a strong word? Like, really? Slur? That's pretty strong. Why do I say that? Because they're insulting you. People don't understand that. Jehovah's Witnesses put some stank on it. That person's worldly. They're not in the truth. This is actually a really big one, as silly as it may sound, because if you were born into the organization or you were raised in it from the time you were a small child, it's actually a really effective tool to keep people mentally enslaved and afraid of the outside world. But take it from me, someone who's been out for a while, if you're one of those people who needs to hear this, worldly is a construct. It's a boogeyman term. The organization has distorted the actual definition of worldly to keep you in fear. In the real world, worldly means sophisticated, educated, or at the very least knowledgeable, traveled, you learned about different cultures, different ways of life, you got street smarts, you know some stuff from being out in the world. Jehovah's Witnesses, on the other hand, use the term worldly to make you think that the other person is completely devoid of a moral compass. That worldly person is just a morally bankrupt, dangerous influence. I mean, really, this term really did give a lot of people a complex. It did for me, because even after I left the organization, I was like, I wasn't a Jehovah's Witness anymore, but I didn't feel like I was part of society. I still felt other. I had an otherness. A lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, definitely current Jehovah's Witnesses, but even former Jehovah's Witnesses struggle with this feeling of otherness. I've talked about this in other videos. Jehovah's Witnesses they're different. They're different from other denominations. They don't have the wealth of social experiences that would allow them to relate to the outside world. Birthdays, right? They grew up in an extremely sexually repressive environment. They didn't have a normal childhood or normal development throughout their teen years, where they hung out with friends at school, went to prom. And I'm not saying if on the other end, if you did all these things, your life was perfect, but Jehovah's Witnesses are a different breed. They grew up in a very isolated environment. So again, they don't have these normal life experiences that they can look back on and then, relate to other people, so they feel socially awkward usually when they leave. Again, I did a video about this last year, that I'm socially awkward. I'll leave a link below in the bio. You'll hear them say all the time, like, the other person just doesn't get it. Whoever it is, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, they really try to be understanding, but they just don't get it. My coworker just doesn't get it. My therapist doesn't get it. Even if you're watching this, a Jehovah's Witness, maybe your coworker is a Jehovah's Witness, one, maybe you have a Jehovah's Witness family member, and you're the nicest person, and you don't think anything of this, you don't think anything of the divide, they have still been taught their whole lives to sleep with one eye open. So again, don't let this F with your head. Worldly is a construct. used by the organization to make you feel like you're separate or alien from the rest of humanity. If this applies to you and you're really struggling, don't believe it. All right? There's no special, magical separation between you and that never Jehovah's Witness standing in front of you at the grocery store. Sure, there's assholes out there. You may have had wildly different upbringings, but there's literally no separate class of worldly people. Number 8, maintain a sense of urgency. If you've been diagnosed with anxiety or panic disorder, you may be entitled to compensation from the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. They say this to you to psych you out, like the second you leave the organization, Armageddon's gonna come. It's not coming. You're gonna be okay. What's not okay is to keep pumping fear and anxiety into your parishioners with, this religious motto or mentality that is not physically, mentally, or emotionally sustainable. You cannot live on the edge of your seat for decades on end. It is not healthy for your brain. It doesn't take a psychologist or a rocket scientist to understand that. They say this phrase to mean like, oh, don't let yourself go. Don't make any mistakes where you would end up disfellowshipped and fall out of Jehovah's favor because the end is coming like a thief in the night. And look, you screwed up and look where you're at now. Now you're fornicating or living a ungodly, worldly lifestyle, whatever it is you're doing. And look, now you lost out on the blessing of paradise because you didn't maintain your sense of urgency. Never mind that your quality of life has completely tanked waiting for this elusive paradise. You're stressed, depressed, and disillusioned. They're basically threatening you. This is cruel. When you think about it, this is cruel and unsustainable. In fact, I'm going to counter this argument of maintain your sense of urgency with a different scripture. Proverbs 13:12. Expectation postponed makes the heart sick. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't giving you hope. They're giving you high blood pressure. Number 7, when your child leaves Jehovah. Ugh, there's so much to unpack here. This is a classic Watchtower strategy to twist the narrative around to make it look like you are the aggressor. 3-pronged response. A, you never actually grow up in the Jehovah's Witnesses. So even though you're a grown-ass man with a mortgage, they like to use insulting language or phrasing like when your child leaves to transport you back to a subordinate role like you're an infant and to make it look like your parents are the real victims here. B, if you're still a believer, if you still identify or consider yourself as a believer or a Christian, maybe you still believe in Jehovah. Don't bother defending yourself because you know that they don't recognize any other denomination as legitimate. You know that already. In their eyes, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, you're not a Christian. So don't waste your breath being like, I didn't leave Jehovah, I left an organization. They don't care. It's going to fall on deaf ears. And C, don't blame yourselves, parents. Don't blame yourself. You've done absolutely nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong in your parenting. They just went off the rails. Every cult does this. Defectors just have mental problems. They're poisoned by outsiders or worldly people. You know as well as I do that there is never a legitimate reason to leave a cult. You can be the nicest person. Leave quietly. You're not trying to rock the boat, cause any problems. You're not asking your parents or your family to leave. You come in peace, and they'll still try to smear you. Let them talk trash. Let them feel sorry for themselves. It is not your job to rescue your parents from their permanent state of arrested development. Number 6, don't bring reproach on Jehovah's name. This is a staple. I mean, they use it in all sorts of situations, but it has been infamously used to silence CSA survivors. Don't go to the police because it's going to bring reproach on Jehovah's name, aka the organization. If you haven't noticed yet, you haven't noticed a pattern? The Jehovah's Witnesses conflate themselves with God. Don't bring reproach on Jehovah's name means don't do anything to make us look bad. It's their clever way of deflecting responsibility and putting the onus on you to shore up their image. Don't let this F with your head because you are not responsible for your abuser's behavior. And again, when I say that, I don't know what that's going to look like for you, meaning whether it was actual physical or sexual abuse or, if your parents are just trying to guilt trip you or whatever. All right, if they resent you for speaking up, they should have been better humans. Number 5, loving discipline. If you've ever had the pleasure of being called into the back room, even for the most minor of offenses, you know this one well. Call it every buzzword in the book, okay? Emotional manipulation, gaslighting, fear-mongering, guilt trips. Loving discipline is their version of tough love, except there's no love. It's nothing more than a browbeating kangaroo court disguised as care and concern for you. Look, if you need to hear this, because you're struggling with loving discipline or counsel, or I need to talk to the elders, or maybe I should listen to them, unless you murdered someone in cold blood, all right? Don't let this one F with your head either. You haven't done anything so bad that you need to be berated. I mean, while I wouldn't go so far as to say that all elders are evil bastards, typically you're going to be dealing with a tribunal of men, all right, who don't have any power at work in the office. If we're keeping it 100, don't have any power in the bedroom. All right, they're not getting laid. So basically, they're just holding on to whatever little bit of power they could scrounge up in this sinking ship to compensate for their own failures. I mean, really, I want you to think about this. No man who is happy and secure with himself and happy with his life would sign up to control another man's personal life. Dude's got issues. Number 4, Jehovah loves you. Am I the only one whose skin just absolutely crawls? The visceral reaction that I have to this one is that we were so head f***ed, and then it's like being forced to hug the person who violated you. Jehovah's a monster. He's a judge, right? He's a tepid wet blanket. Jehovah's a buzzkill. I have no love for this stranger that you're trying to convince me is real. Force me to believe is real. Stop. Number 3, beware of secular wisdom. All right, this is another, quote, worldly situation, which Jehovah's Witnesses have typically applied to higher education and therapy. And of course, in recent years, we know they've had to walk back on these issues and temper their radicalization because they're bleeding numbers. But this is another example of language that the organization uses that can screw with your head and can legit discourage people from seeking help. Because if they do go to therapy, they're really nervous. Because therapy is secular wisdom from Satan. You've been trained your whole life that these are the bad guys. Don't listen to them. You've been trained to never speak ill of the organization. It's like an abusive relationship, like an alcoholic household. Everything's fine. They can never say anything bad about the organization. The therapist is going to infect their mind with secular teachings or secular wisdom. And here's the thing, if you don't want to go to therapy, fine, don't go to therapy. But as someone who went to therapy during her waking up process, my therapist personally didn't tell me what to do. I mean, of course, she helped me to identify, she wasn't going to bullshit me. She was like, yeah, that's weird. She helped me to identify toxic, shitty behaviors that I learned from the organization. She didn't tell me to leave. I mean, any therapist is going to be like, yeah, that's messed up. But she didn't tell me you can't be a witness anymore. You shouldn't be a Jehovah's Witness. You're supposed to come to your own conclusions. Of course, we all know that if you spoke to a therapist, like I said, they're going to be like, that's batshit crazy. And that's why the organization is afraid of you going to speak to a therapist, because it's gonna make them look bad, which they deserve. They made their bed. But if you're one of these people, who needs to hear this, considering therapy or whatever, they're not going to infect your brain or force you to do something. The organization managed to do that. That's why you're in therapy. All right, they're the reason you're in therapy. You need therapy and a safe harbor from them. The Jehovah's Witnesses are giving you the disease and then trying to sell you the cure. Number 2, come back to Jehovah. Again, this implies that you left God instead of what really happened. You left an organization, and it also reiterates that their love is conditional. Come back to Jehovah. No. Come back, and then we'll talk. Come back, and then we'll love you. Then we'll consider you. We'll figure out what to do with you. Here's a real mind bender for you. What if you just didn't go back? If you didn't grovel for your parents' love and approval? What if you were okay with yourself? What if they had to meet your standards? That if they want a relationship with you, they need to reassess their behavior. Number 1, the end is just around the corner. The end isn't coming. They've been saying the same shit for over 100 years. But it works on some people. That's why I put it on the list. Some people have left. They've been out for years even, and they're still afraid of Armageddon. Like it's still in the back of their brain. They haven't been able to shake it. They haven't been able to shake this feeling of what if the witnesses are right? Did I do the right thing? They're in your head. Get them out. The heart is treacherous. You can't trust yourself. It's all fear-mongering. I got a better question for you. To end this 10-point journey, let's say they are right about everything. You want to live forever with nothing but Jehovah's Witnesses and these guys? And there it is. So last year, I did a similar list of words and phrases that Jehovah's Witnesses use to screw with their parishioners called Trigger Warning. It's a 2-part series. Be sure to check it out. I'll leave a link. Did I leave anything off the list that you think should have been added? Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.